Oh, I'm thinking I am probably live. I'm so not ready for this. Hi, I'm Bankslayer. I'm not slaying any banks today. As a matter of fact, I'm not really capable of slaying anything at all. So, you know, so what am I going to do? It's, as you can tell by the still big baggy bags under my eyes, I'm not really getting much sleep at the moment, and it's just one of those things, you know. We don't always get all the sleep we need, but you know, I guess it is what it is. I hate that. I hate that saying. If you ever read any of my stuff, you really have to know that I am the queen of just all the cliches. I love my cliches. I speak in cliches. It's one of my hobbies. It's a bit like, you know, the old salt and pepper shaker collection which I've got. You know, it's just nice to have all of the cliches on hand, and there's so many. They're so useful. They're kind of shorthand. Now, if you've ever done a writing course, the first thing that they say is, oh, don't do any cliches. You know, nobody wants the cliches. But I personally, I love them as much as I like the kitsch in my life. I am somewhat into kitsch. If there is the epitome of classy, then I'm the furthest thing away from that, because I'm just, you know, the queen of dags. And that's all right. I don't have to be classy. I am a lady. Because I haven't gotten anything ready. Oh my God, I'm so tired. I can't even think straight. So I think I might just have a bit of a chat about me and my life. Because I've gotten through the toughest period of my life, where the bank took us to the cleaners and they got everything. My husband's super survived, and all my kitsch survived, all of our collections, you know. And I'm one of those people, I don't like selling stuff. I mean, I've got bowls that, you know, we joke with our son that, you know, it's his inheritance. I've got bowls that I've had since my husband and I first started living together, you know, back in the 80s when we shacked up together. And they're still in perfect condition, you know, and, you know, we laugh about these bowls being family heirlooms. And I mean, I've got, and I posted it on a Facebook page in one of the Facebook groups here in Perth, still got the bottle of cuddly softener that I bought back in, would have been about 84, 85. I think it might have been 84. I think my daughter was only a baby. And, you know, I've been putting the cuddly refill into it. It's like, that's what you do. I've been using the same softener bottle, and it's moved from Kambalda to Boulder, from Boulder to Boddington, from Boddington to Padbury, from Padbury to Mandurah, and here we are. It's gone everywhere with us. So, you know, we ended up getting rid of some furniture, and it's like, oh, I think Mum gave me that. I actually have got things that we've had that when we moved in together, you know, we were given it. It was second hand, still in good nick today. Why would I get rid of it? And the older I get, the more I appreciate old things. So, you know, I've started a collection of old, you know, the cups and saucer sets. You know, they're really nice. I got a lovely collection now. My mum used to collect them in Germany, so I'm kind of sad that she let them go. Like, she left them there when we came here, and I used to buy them for her because I know that she loved them. But even though I've got all of these things, I don't believe in collecting things and putting them away into a shelf and no one can touch them. I use everything, and if it breaks, it breaks. I've just been lucky enough to not have broken most of my stuff. But I scored some of Mum's cups and saucers that she had left, but, she'd often break them, and you know what the hey? There's always another birthday, another Mother's Day, another Christmas, or another, hey, it's lovely to see you. I brought you a gift. So, that's what they were for. They were there to use. So, but anyway, I don't tend to get rid of stuff, is pretty much the point I'm trying to make. I hang on to things. That's probably why I've still got my first husband. And we always used to joke, like, a lot of people break up when they go through this big, horrible thing where, they've got, dealing with lawyers, and especially with the banking stuff, because it's usually your house. There's usually a business involved, so it's your income. And it's usually a family business, so it affects a lot more people than just you yourself. So, and I mean, a lot of farmers go through this, so there's always this big thing. And I know that a lot of couples do split up. And, at one stage, hubby and I, we'd sort of look at each other, and it's like, if it all gets too hard, don't expect me to leave you, because I'm too tired. I'm too lazy to do that. I just, no. If you want to go away, that's fine. Just go away. But I'm not doing it. And, sometimes we sort of joke the reason we're still together is because we're just too bloody lazy to start again. But it's probably our sense of humour that keeps us together, because we do have this dry, horrible sense of humour. We're very dark. But, it's the only thing that gets you through sometimes, isn't it? So when we went through all of this, and, it was just, how do you deal with it? Back when we did it, we didn't know anyone going through this. We didn't really go to the internet that much. I mean, I think I joined Facebook in 2008. So we were already in this court battle. And I mean, back when I first joined Facebook, they'd only just started opening it up, and you were still sort of kept in your bubble. So it was only if you knew someone who knew someone, and you kind of had to stick in your circles. So I think for about 3 or 4 years, I did bugger all with Facebook. I barely remembered I was on it. I didn't do the internet for my research, because as soon as you tried to find something, there was nothing there. It had come up with the websites for the law firms and what they did. But I was looking for legal advice. And I imagine that, if you found this channel and, I mean, it's Bankslayer. That doesn't really mean very much, does it? I mean, Bankslayer doesn't say anything about getting legal advice. So, unless I get my search terms right, no one's ever going to find it. So, it's, you couldn't find legal advice. And then when you did find legal advice, it was so generic, it wasn't helpful. And of course, no one ever gave you legal advice on how to deal with a bank that was coming for you. And of course, everybody says, well, the banks don't do the wrong thing. You've obviously done something, you did it. It was really horrible. And so I'm not sure which was the worst bit. The uncertainty, like, I had no idea how this was going to go. You know, I used to have the Perth bank manager who, so it wasn't our personal banker, it was from head office in Perth. He would phone me every Tuesday and say, I don't know why you're bothering, you know, you'll be out by Friday. Every Tuesday. Do you know why? I had meetings on a Tuesday and he knew it, because he'd come around, and it happened to be a Tuesday when he came around, like, you know, about a year before. And they take notes of everything. Everything you told them was in there. And he knew that I was on a committee that had meetings every week. And every week he'd be doing it. Every week I'd be getting that phone call. It was just shit, because, you know, if you don't know by now, they can't kick you out unless they've got all the paperwork, and they can't get all the paperwork until they've taken you to court. You know, you get your chance to have your say. So, you know, if ever they come to evict you and they show you a bit of paperwork, if you've not been notified, then it's not really legit, is it? But that doesn't mean to say that they won't try it on. It's, you know. But that was really hard, sort of that uncertainty and not knowing how the legal process works. Like, I knew nothing. I believed him when he said, we are going to be able to kick you out on Friday. You know, you're going to be out. Because I didn't know that they had to go through court. I didn't know that there was this whole legal process, that they had to prove things, and that even if they won at summary judgment, which I didn't know what summary judgment was, even if they ended up getting everything, there was still, you know, time for an appeal, and there was still time. You could ask for time to get everything in place. So that, you know, I mean, we had lots of farm animals that we had to sort out. You know, we had geriatric cats and dogs, and, well, one cat and one dog at that stage. But, you know, we needed to have time for that. So at the beginning, when the bank manager would phone and say, well, you'll be out by Friday, I really didn't know. I kind of freaked out when he used to do that. So there's that pressure that's on you. And then, of course, as your life's falling apart, that's another pressure. So, you know, I dropped the ball with my daughter. And it wasn't that I don't love my daughter. I do. I just couldn't, let's put it politely, I couldn't get my shit together. And there were long-term repercussions for that. And it's, you know, no matter how much you think I'll be able to make it up later, I'll get my shit together and I'll do it all right. Of course you never do, because you don't get a chance. So there's that aspect of it. And then, of course, there's the whole secrets bit, because you don't want everybody to know your business, so you're not telling everybody how bad it is. Only some people are in the loop. And for the people that you're keeping in the loop, now, I was really lucky because we didn't lose our friends. But I know a few people who've gone through this, and because all you want to do is talk about it, and you're literally talking everybody's ears off. It's, at least I did. You're stuck in this loop. It's like a broken record, and it just, you know, it wears you down in yourself, and you're trying to make sense of it. So you're telling people what's going on, and you're trying to make sense, and it's trying to make sense, and it's trying to make sense, and it doesn't make sense. You can't get that shit to make sense because it's nonsensical. The banks know it, the courts know it, everybody knows it, but no one can really tell you how to get out from under it. A lot of law firms wouldn't even look at that. It's like, oh no, if you're taking on a bank, it's something that they can't take on because they're not equipped to deal with it. There's so much that goes into it. So you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's no two ways about it. And a lot of the time, as you're talking, everybody's ears off because you're going around like a broken record, and you can never change the tune. And no matter what you do, you always get back to this one thing, and you just go around on that all the time. People can't take it anymore. They can't take your pain. They can't take your negativity. They can't take your false hope. They can't take your anger. They can't take any of the things that you keep dumping on them anymore. So they just don't want anything to do with you. I can't say I blame anyone for that. It's a hard thing to listen to someone absolutely lose their mind as their life's going down the gurgler. And you don't know where it's going to end. And it's so much uncertainty. So why do you want to hang around with people who are absolutely losing the plot? It's really hard. Now, I did that to a great degree. I did. I won't say, oh, I was really good. No, I wasn't. I was a pain in the ass. And I had the advantage of being a trained counsellor, so I kind of knew how to help myself a bit. But I still think I should have gone to counselling, and rather than talking to my friends about it, because there were only 3 people I spoke to about it, nobody else knew what was happening with us at all. Until it got to the stage where we couldn't really not talk about it anymore, we kept stum about it. We just didn't want anyone to know. And I think I needed to go and see a counsellor. Anybody who talks to me about this, they probably get annoyed because they think I'm trying to chuff them off, and I can't be asked talking to them. But when I hear people that they're talking to me on the phone, they've been given my number, or someone's asked if I'd talk to them. Once they start going around in circles, I suggest that they go and see a counsellor, because they need to talk. And they need to talk without judgment. They need to talk so that there's confidentiality. Some people just need to talk to get it out of their system, to stop hanging on to it. And it's one of the first things I do, because when the banks and the other party wins, they win when you are so emotional that you can't think straight. And whether you're up against a bank or you're a franchisee and you're up against the franchise, or the franchisor, or if you're a tenant who's fighting your landlord, or whatever it might be, the minute that you're stuck in your emotions and you are so angry and upset and you're going off at tangents, that's when they win. You've got to pull back, and you've got to become logical. And the only way to get on top of your emotions is to get all that shit out. And the best way to do it that doesn't damage your relationships, which you need. You need your relationships. You need your family. You need your friends. You're not an island. Just, get over this idea that you can handle it all on your own. So take the endless monologue and the broken record of, they did this and then this and then this, and now they, whatever it is you're hung up on, whichever part of the story, pay someone to listen to you. Because, they can give you, depending on the kind of counsellor you see, they might give you coping strategies. So they'll let you talk so long, and then they might say, you've spent the last half an hour just going over this point. What do you think you can do about it? And then they might say, next time you see yourself starting to repeat yourself, how about you try, go for a quick walk, or do this, or do that, or do something to refocus your thinking so that you start breaking it, because you've got to break that loop. And trust me, it takes a while. I mean, I ended up going to study, and then because it was full on, I did each of my degrees in 2.5 years. So I really did a lot of extra study. It took all of that time for me to get to the point where I wasn't talking about it all the time. And this is after everything was finished. And just as I was finishing the first degree is when we settled with the bank. So the bank took us to the cleaners. We went into exile. When I was there, once I picked myself up and dusted myself off, I started studying for my degree. Nearly finished that when we sued the bank for damages for what they'd done to us, and the bank settled that one out of court. And then I went on to do a law degree. And it was after I'd already finished the law degree before I stopped sounding like that bleeding broken record. So this isn't easy. I would never say it's easy. Some people, just like that, they regroup, they move on, they get their emotions in check. They're just good to go. They know what they got to do. They bang, bang, bang. Fine. I'm not like that. There's a lot of people like me. So, I'm not talking to the people that have got their shit together. I'm talking to people like me that end up being so damaged by going through the courts and, just feel so lost. And I mean, people sometimes look at you like, well, it was nothing. Like, oh, well, you didn't own the farm anyway. Yeah, well, we owned most of it. We had a mortgage of, it was a $140,000 mortgage on our older farm, the first one we owned. And, we weren't paid that bit back. And the bank undersold both properties for Swetie. So they took a really big loss on both of them because they could say that we still owed the money. But they were the ones that sold them significantly undervalue. I mean, significantly. The first farm that they sold it without the development approval, although it had development approval in place. So, that farm was ready to be subdivided there and then. They wouldn't let us do it. We'd actually found a company to go do a joint venture with. It would have gotten rid of, 75% of the debt that we had, and we could have easily managed the other 25% of debt on my husband's income. And the bank wouldn't hear of it. They just, not interested. And then, of course, it turns out the loan was fraudulent anyway, and it was their bank manager that had committed the fraud, not us. It wasn't anything to do with us. We didn't know so much about this. And, of course, there's that anger as well. Like, it was your bloody employee that caused it. How come I'm the one paying the price? And, the banks never miss out. They do not miss out. And it's like, the poor banks, being taken to the cleaners by all these bloody terrible customers. And that's not what it was. It was, we trusted them, which in hindsight, lots of water under that particular bridge. But you sort of look back and you go, what kind of a fucking moron was I? Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Some people are retracting their messages. I've actually got messages. Hi, guys. I'm not sure why you would make some of those comments. I did see them, but they're gone now. That's a bit of a shame. And no, I haven't felt this way since high school. I was actually, and I don't feel that way now. I mean, this is just something that I went through as a result of. That's okay, Macabre. I'm settled in my new life. Ooh. And that's my puppy that you can hear. Yeah, I might have to go and let him out so that he can do his barking. Can you get him, please?
Where is he?
He's in the office with me.
Do you want me to take him?
Yes, please.
Come on.
Yes, so we're doing fine. It's okay. I mean, I had a lot of support from my husband. We worked our way through this. It was pretty good. But you still get angry. You get really angry when somebody does the dirty on you. And I mean, I saw it when I was working as a lawyer, and I see it now. Just, especially in the family court, there's so many people going through so much worse than what we did. And I mean, the way that we dealt with the money side of it, realising that, the bank was going to get everything, is we ended up thinking of what was happening, like the money ended up being like monopoly money, easy come, easy go. But, we got there. It's separating all of the bits. Like, I had a hard time dealing with our lawyer. Our lawyer in hindsight, and I thought it was just, that's how lawyers were. But he was just he wasn't a very nice person. He was not a nice human being. And some of the things that he did, he would provoke me and to get me angry, which is really weird. It's not the kind of thing that you would expect your lawyer to do. And I mean, a lot of the time, when you're dealing with a legal matter, you know that you've got deadlines. There's always deadlines, You just put in the documents, and then there's a bit of a court hearing, just to discuss whatever's gone forward. And then, there's orders and, now we want to see these documents, or now you do this. And for all of this stuff, there's filing fees. So every time you've got to do something, you've got to pay filing fees. And our lawyer, a lot of the time, would phone up at, say, lunchtime and say, these documents have to be in today. 4 o'clock close of business. But you've got to put money into the account because, we've got the money sitting there to pay the barrister, but you haven't given us the money for the filing fee. Can you make sure you get money for the filing fee? And, of course, it's got to be before 4 o'clock. And back then, with internet banking, it wasn't instant. And because of the stuff with the bank, we didn't have credit cards that were going, so we couldn't just do a credit card payment. So this back in the good old days when, you'd have the safe with cash, and I would drive into Perth. I would drop everything I was doing, drive into Perth, pay the cash to the lawyer, and the look on his face when I would show up to pay these bills so that the filing fee was covered. And, we'd put some money into the kitties so that, we'd be able to go on a bit further. It didn't dawn on me until later that was because he was hoping that we wouldn't have the money for filing. That way he wouldn't have to file. That way he'd say, oh, no, you're a bad client. I'm going to dump you. And lawyers do that. Well, that's kind of it depends on how you deal with things, Macabre. It's, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. With this guy, he knew where I was worried about things. And that's kind of what people who like to poke the bear, so to speak, that's what they do. When they know that you're going to react to certain things, they will bring it up. Now, I wouldn't expect a lawyer to do that, but it turns out my lawyer did that quite a bit. You know, we'd be in the elevator going out for a coffee or back into the office, because a lot of the time he actually took, well, no, it wasn't a lot of the time. I remember once, but there were a couple of times, I think, where we were supposed to meet at the cafe. And, you know, just walking between the office and the court, he would just do casual conversation things and then say something that he knew would upset me about our case. So I know a couple of times the barrister actually said that the judge was so deep in the pocket of the banks that I had no hope. And of course that gets me angry. But how do I know that that was true and that wasn't just him saying that? And I suspect they were both just playing on how I was feeling, because it turns out they didn't want to represent us, because, you know, they just didn't want to do that. But, yeah, I was too stupid to realise. Isn't that terrible? But, yeah, so, I mean, most of the time, look, most lawyers are really good. I just happened to not have one of the superstars. And that doesn't mean that I wasn't paying someone who was, like, you know, I was paying a really good rate. But there's better lawyers around. And he isn't a lawyer anymore. He was kicked out. So, well, he wasn't so much kicked out as he didn't renew his practicing certificate. But these are things that you kind of, that they do get personal. The way that you would react to your lawyer is personal to your way of dealing with stress, because you never see a lawyer when life's going great, unless you want a prenup, and, you know, even then, you know, that's pretty stressful as well, isn't it? I mean, lawyers never see you at your best, in my opinion. I mean, I used to see people at their really lowest days. So, you know, you kind of, I actually sent a letter to the lawyer, and I put in a complaint to the Legal Profession Complaints Committee about the lawyer. And I suggested that all lawyers should really do counselling training so that they would know how to speak to clients. And I've noticed it a lot, even, you know, just casually walking past, you know, clients and lawyers talking outside of the court. You sort of hear lawyers say some things where you sort of think, oh, I wouldn't want someone to say that to me, and I don't care that you're my lawyer. You know, it just wasn't a good way of expressing it, or, you know, it seemed a bit insensitive to me. And I guess that's one of the things that I can say about my lawyer. He was pretty insensitive about just what a big deal this is. It is a really big deal when you're going through court. And I mean, anyone who thinks that going through the family court, for example, isn't really a big deal, you know, it's just, you know, you don't even need a lawyer because you can self-represent. It's a really big deal because of what's at stake. And even if it's only your property that you and your spouse have accumulated over a lifetime, you know, how do you split it up? You know, is it fair? You know, what does each of you think you've contributed and how much anger is behind that? You know, it does get very emotional. But it's so much worse when you're talking about your kids. And one partner says, well, I don't want you to see the kids at all. Go away. You're horrible. It's never easy going to court. And, I mean, criminal is even worse because half the time, even for a small mistake, as in a lapse of a second, you can go to jail for a long time, you know, if that lapse causes serious injury or death to someone else. So it's pretty stressful. So as I say, I reckon if you're going through anything in the courts and you're going over the same thing and you're starting to sound like a broken record, rather than always talking to your friends, give your friends a break and go and talk to a counsellor. Much, much better. Better way of dealing with it. And I think your friends will appreciate it too because, you know, you know when your friends are fair weather friends because they're the ones you never see really at the beginning. But you're really good friends that are there for you all the time. Even they get worn out. I mean, if your court case is going to last, 3 years? And they are there for every minute of that 3 years. And the only conversation they ever have with you, no matter what it is, you know, you're at a birthday party, you've gone to the races, it's Christmas, and all you do is, you know, keep being stuck in that loop. It is a really, really tough thing for your friends. Yeah, I'm glad you think that that's good advice. It's the best I've got because, you know, we're only human. We don't really want to talk to people who are never anything but sad and low. I mean, I know people who worry that their friends are going to kill themselves over something like this, and it is serious. There's lots of people who've, you know, decided that the only way out is to actually kill themselves. You know, their family's better off without them. I got there at one stage, but I did the thing that they reckon you never do. I made a deal with God, and I said, look, I won't do it right now, but, you know, if by the close of business on Friday we could have an offer on the farm, I'll hang in there. I'll see this through, but I want to have an offer on the farm. And lo and behold, come close of business Friday, I get a phone call from the real estate agent saying, oh, look, we've got an offer on the farm, you know, if you want to accept it. So we accepted the offer, and of course they never put in an offer in writing, and I'd made a deal with God, so I hung around. I stuck to my guns, you know. I said if I can have an offer, I'll hang around. So I did. Kind of got stuck there, but it's just the thing, you know, that we got to do. We've got to make our peace with it, because you can't get through this legal stuff if you're fighting your own demons and if you're stuck in a loop, because you've got things to do. You can't just give everything over to the lawyer and say you deal with it. That's what we did, because our son nearly died just before we went to summary judgment, and we literally couldn't deal with it because we didn't know if he was going to survive it or not. At first they thought that he had pneumonia, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse, and they literally told us he's not going to make it. You know, you're going to have to be around so that you can make your peace with him and, you know, get ready to say goodbye. And I ended up getting a hold of another doctor, and I sent him an email, and he got back to me straight away. He would have read that email 5 minutes after I sent it, and he phoned me up, And he said, well, it can only be two things. It can only be AIDS or Wegener's granulomatosis. And I said, well, they've given him about 10 AIDS tests and they've all come back negative. And he says, well, it's Wegener's then. And I went into the hospital and, spoke to Dr. Swetie, who asked me if I'd consulted Dr. Google, to which I responded that, well, actually, no, I asked a doctor on you. And then they did the Wegener's test, and that's what our son had. And he recovered, but it was like touch and go for months. It was really, really hard. So we didn't concentrate on the banking stuff. We asked the lawyer to handle everything, and the lawyer didn't look through all of the documents that the bank sent through. And after we'd lost everything, I actually had a chance to look through the bank's affidavit, and there on, I think it was about page 83 of this really significant affidavit, was the incriminating documents that we needed to show that the bank knew what was going on. They knew it wasn't us. They knew that it was their employee, and they knew that they should never have given us that loan because it was there in the internal bank documents. And our lawyer didn't even bother reading it. We were walking to the court on the day of the summary judgment, and he said to me, oh, that affidavit, didn't even bother reading it. It was just, normal bank stuff, didn't bother. And I'm not sure if you know that about the law, but if you've got information that's critical to your case and you don't draw the court's attention to it, so you don't offer it as evidence and, get it put in as evidence, then you can't rely on it later, ever. It's gone. If you had it then, you have to have it there. It's called the ancient estoppel. So when we sued the bank for damages, we literally couldn't use it. We had to get around that document. I mean, we managed to do it by not having the same case. So it's just a different argument. So the document was in again. But then the bank settled out of court anyway, so it didn't really matter. Would have been better if they'd settle for more money, but, dems the brakes. And at all times, I think you've got to get yourself into a place where you're prepared to walk away. And by walk away, when we settled, we called it walking away, because we would have gotten a better settlement if we'd kept going. But we looked at the overall cost. And when we looked at the overall cost, it wasn't just the legal fees, which would have been at least $300,000. It would have cost us about 7 years because the banks don't stop. If you get a good outcome, they come back at you and back at you and back at you, all the way to the High Court. And then, of course, the emotional cost, and that's the biggest one. That's the one. I've seen people age so much. I've seen fit, healthy people in, late 40s, early 50s. They go through something like this, and at the end of it, they've aged about 20 years, even if it's only been 3. It sucks the life out of you if you don't look after yourself. And it's so easy to give up and to take to drink. I mean, been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. At least I didn't drink the spirits, but, certainly indulged in a fair bit more wine than I would have normally done. But, the diet, you're not eating properly. You're not sleeping properly. You stop exercising. You stop doing the things that you found joy in. And once you stop feeling that joy, yeah, it can take it out of you. I've seen a few people. I've met a few people that are in their 50s, and I tell you what, I've seen 90-year-olds that look better. It's a scary thing. Just the health issues. Was talking to a woman not long ago, and her husband, you know, he ended up having a heart attack. He got really ill. And if, you know, because you're not doing the same things, you're not happy. Happiness is, I think happiness is the wrong word to use. I think it's contentment, because happiness is a fleeting moment, but you can be content with life. And that's critical. You know, how do you find peace in the life you've got today, because you don't know if you've got tomorrow? You can't put life on hold saying, oh, I'll get back to it as soon as I've finished in court. Before I started my law degree in 2014, I met this couple who, that she just realised her husband hadn't told her that they were about to lose the house. And so she sort of phoned me in a panic because someone had given her my number. And I went around there and saw her, looked at what she had. So I helped her put together an application, you know, for a stay in the proceedings and a stay of execution. And lo and behold, she had the same judge who heard our appeal, and he granted the stay of execution and said, oh no, there's something here. And she's still fighting on her own now. So her husband died about 3 years ago, and he was only really young too. And she's still fighting this. And, you know, you can't put your life on hold. Can you put your life on hold for 7 years? Can you say, oh, look, I'll start exercising and sleeping properly when I'm done? So you kind of have to wrap your head around, you know, this can go on for an extended period of time. I don't want to not see my family and friends. I don't want to not smile again. You know, I mean, we were at the stage where we sort of decided, because we were never going to have a good day again, we were going to celebrate the crappy days. And we would get a bottle of champagne. We'd, you know, we drink to, well, we've survived a crappy day, so yay us. But there are so many things that I put on hold, and you just can't do it. You can't do it for an extended period of time. So if I can help people get through this and, you know, tell you, go and see a counsellor, live life, go to the parties, you know, get your exercise routine happening, you know, make sure that you eat healthy food. I still don't eat healthy food, you know, that ship sailed a long time for me because I just am so tired I can't do it. When we lived for 3 years in Perth in a rental, and I think I cooked 2 meals because, and I mean, I'm someone, I loved cooking. I used to really enjoy cooking, and, you know, I was born in Germany, and my mum was a cook who'd been trained in Germany. So food was this really big thing in our life. And once we went through this thing, I stopped cooking. I stopped cake decorating. I stopped everything. All of my hobbies, everything was gone. And you can't do that. And some things I've never picked up again. And there's a part of me that thinks I'd really like to do that. And then I'm so tired and I'm there. I'm not sure if I can do that again. And my advice to others would be, don't stop doing the fun things. I know we get a certain level of exhaustion going through this stuff. But I think we need to push through. It's a tough call. It's always hard. But one of the things I always like to tell people when I see them, and for the 5 minutes that I was a practicing lawyer, when I saw clients that were so emotional, and they were so beaten, they thought that this was the end of the world. And I mean, some of them, their problems, I don't like to compare legal problems because you have to deal with it in your own way, and it's a big deal no matter what it is. But, in my office, I had an aerial photo of our farm. And when I had clients that were really, really, they were destroyed by what they were going through, I would point to the photograph and I would tell them my story. And I said, I got through that. I've built a new life. It's nothing like my old life, nothing. But it's a new life. I'm content with what I've got. I've got hope. I've got a future. We're working towards things. We have lots of fun. I said, if I can do it, you can do it. And, I used to have clients come back later and say, that really helped. Putting things into perspective, so that once you get things into perspective and you can put the legal thing to a side and say, it's just another thing I have to deal with, but it's not the boogeyman. It's not, the devil's not chasing me. It's doable. It's something horrible, but it's survivable. Then you can move on. Then you can rebuild your life as best you can while you're sorting out the legal problem. But, if you drop the ball, and I mean I dropped the ball, and that's why I can talk about it. I can say, don't do what I did. I didn't handle it well. If you can get your emotions in check before you've got to go to court, then you can help yourself more and you have more control. Because I think one of the scary things is the lack of control. Because once your future depends on what a judge is going to decide, you don't feel control. And we all like to have a bit of control in our life. So if you can control how you react to things, and you can make sure that you know where your documents are, what you need, what the next move is, and you can have a life where you've got, things to look forward to. You've always got to have things to look forward to that are positive, new baby on the way for, either grandparents or, your cousin's having a baby. You've got to have something to look forward to, because that's life. We're full of hope and, future happy things going on. And because the law and money is all wrapped up, so, sometimes it's just legal costs or money is at the root of your problem, you've kind of got to find things that don't cost anything. Can you get to the beach? Can you do a picnic in the park? Taking your dog for a walk. That, I like that. We finally got a new puppy, so I'm quite happy with that. There's things that you can do to rebuild your life even while it's falling apart. One of the clients I saw, she'd put her life on hold waiting to see if she could get compensation for what had happened to her. And I saw her 3 times, I think, and I spoke to her on the phone a few times. And every time I would talk to her, I would ask her what she was doing for herself. Because even though as a lawyer that wasn't my job, as a human being, I cared. is she looking after herself, eating properly, has she thought about, what job does she want to do? Is there something that she really wants to do? Has she got a hobby to go to? Because she had nothing when I first saw her. And then just before I left my job, I got a letter from the compensation mob, and she didn't get the compensation. They said, it was, her matter fell just outside of it. So I had to phone her up and sort of explain to her that, she didn't get it. And she came in a couple of hours later because she said, I'd like to pick up a copy of the letter because printer didn't work or something. And when she walked in, she looked like a totally different woman. She was walking upright. The first time I saw her, she couldn't walk because of what had happened to her. And she was, she was bright, she was happy, and she hugged me and she said, if you hadn't started asking me about what I was doing to move on, I never would have moved on. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that I didn't get the compensation because my life is so much better. I think we forget, especially when there is so much lack because we've got no money, that we can achieve a lot without money. There are things that we can do for ourselves that don't cost a lot of money. It's not a trite thing. It's really serious. And I mean, this is from someone who lost, my husband used to work 16-hour days back in the day before occupational health and safety used to step in. And, one fell swoop, the bank took everything we'd worked for. And we never used to have holidays. When we were younger, we had a young family. I was raising the kids and my husband was at work all the time. I think that we went for 4 years without a holiday. And when we did take holidays, it would be like, a long weekend down to Esperance camping. We just didn't do the holidays. And, then we thought, well, what the hell did we do that for? That was a waste. So our relationship with money is totally different now. It's like, as long as we've got enough to pay off the mortgage for like 6 months, which would give us 6 months leeway to sell the house if we needed to, we just live life. We don't stress about the same things anymore. Do things different. So, it's worth doing. Anyway, I am probably going to call it quits now because it's been nearly an hour. If you've got a legal issue and you're dealing with something, whether it's the family court or, there's your family's up in arms over, granddad's will, whatever it is, if you are not law savvy, if you've never had anything to do with lawyers, I'm guessing you're not really travelling well because it's confusing. It's so regimented, Lawyers can be so intimidating. If you're having problems dealing with it, if you find yourself in a loop and you're just going round in circles, do yourself and your family a favour. Get yourself a counsellor in Western Australia, and I'm assuming it's in other places in Australia as well. Not sure if you're listening in another country what the go is there. But here we can go to the doctors and get a referral to a psychologist. You get 6 sessions a year for free. Do it. Go and see someone. If you see a psychologist, they will give you coping mechanisms and they'll listen to you for a bit. And as they start hearing you go around in circles, they will, help you. If you end up being really depressed, get a referral to a psych who can give you a proper assessment to see if you need medication. Difference between psychologist and psychiatrist. is psychiatrists can prescribe medication. Antidepressants your doctor can prescribe, of course, but I would lean towards a mental health professional doing it. You know, might be something more happening, and it might only be the stress. So, you know, I always used to say, if the pills would fix the problem, I'd take a truckload. But because mine was situational depression, where, you know, if I didn't have the problem, I wouldn't be depressed, I chose not to take antidepressants because I just figured they wouldn't be worth it for me. I still think for me it was a good call, but, you know, I'm all for, you know, if you need it, go and have it. Don't let people say, you don't need pills, because you might. You don't know. Go and talk to a professional. You know, get the help you need, because you don't want to deal with this on your own, and you don't want to drive yourself nuts. It's easy to lose the plot. So anyway, just to finish off, I'm settled in my life. I still get a bit angry about what happened, simply because it's such a big thing, and we shouldn't have lost everything. We just shouldn't. It's the way the Australian system works. It's not very good. There's lots of inquiries about how to fix it. We just need a government that actually gives a damn. But in ourselves, we're good. We're settled. And as I say, you know, I just want to help people now. So happy to do that. Anyway, I am going to let you go. Have a great rest of the day. I mean, it's only 2 o'clock here, so I'm not sure what time it is where you are, but have fun, and I'll catch you later. I'll be back here again tomorrow